welcome back to our channel, Paradise in Paraguay, where this is our paradise. Also, make sure to like us and follow us on our Facebook fan page, Instagram, and Twitter, all at Paradise in Paraguay. And while you're here, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
Hey you guys, welcome back to our channel, Paradise in Paraguay. If you want to be a part of our virtual family, all you got to do is hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you can get notified every time we upload a new video. Now, I know it's been a little while since we recorded our last video, but as you can see, you guys, we got kids, okay? We got children, okay? And they are a handful. So anybody that's out there that got a family, you should understand. And this is not all that we do, okay? This is something that we squeeze in time to do when we have time, okay? But anyways, welcome back to the channel. And so today we're going to be talking about how we chose Paraguay. How did we get here? How did we get here? Thinking of here, right now we are at a resort hotel because yesterday was our 7-year anniversary. Pause, sound effect. But yeah, so we just been here chilling and just having a wonderful time. And so we decided, hey, let's go ahead and record a video, right? Since we got some extra time right now. So if you are a subscriber, or even if you aren't, you probably have already seen our other video where we explained why we decided to leave the United States in general. So this video is just basically a continuation based off of there, just to give you guys some more insight, again, on how we got here in general. So we got why we left the States, and now today we're going to be talking about, okay, after we left the States, how did we choose where the heck we were going? You know, the world is huge. How did we choose this place? How did we choose this continent, this country? There's several countries down here, but we chose Paraguay. So we're going to get into that right now. So help us out.
All right, so the first thing we did was we listed like all the countries in the world on pieces of paper, cut them up, and put them in a hat.
Yep.
And we had Elijah pull out 5. And then between those 5, we did elimination coin flips, and we ended up with Paraguay.
Joke.
No,
we're
no,
totally
no, we didn't
totally
do that
kidding.
at all. No, actually, it took literally months of research. But to give you an idea of our thought process, let me just go down through the process. First of all, when you're choosing to leave your home country, you literally have the entire world to choose from. So,
right.
looking
depending on your resources.
Yeah, depending on your resources, we literally could not choose any country out of all of them to move to. So we had to find what would work for us.
And all of them we didn't want to.
Right.
Some places got some really terrible things going on, but yeah, go ahead.
So basically, a lot of the reasons why we wanted to leave the United States had to do with a lot of the problems that are going on in developed countries in general. So in general, we didn't want to move to a developed country, and there's a lot of, when you look at the world and the globe and whatnot, a lot of the issues have to deal with where most of the world powers are, where most of the population is.
Right, which is why we didn't want to move to another developed country.
Right.
In case you didn't catch that.
Right. So we looked at, okay,
No more
well,
developed
let's go from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere, because the vast
Okay, the
majority
baby was getting a little restless, so we had to put her in her stroller. She's chilling now. Yeah. But yeah, so like you were saying, all of the world powers are in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah, essentially, we moved to the southern hemisphere because the vast majority of the world's population, the vast majority of the world powers, and thus global conflict and wars and pollution and whatnot, things that affect large amounts of people on a global scale, are pretty much isolated to the northern hemisphere. So we decided to separate ourselves from that distance-wise by moving to the southern hemisphere. So that took a lot of the countries we could move to. It took that list down a lot.
Right.
Additionally,
and the other thing, though, we weren't looking for another U.S.
Right. Additionally, we wanted to move to a developing country versus a developed country, because a lot of the problems that are going on in the United States are also mirrored in other developed countries. So we wanted to move to a developing country where we could have a more a traditional and slower pace of life, and also have a lot more opportunities to grow with the country as well, and give our children the opportunities to grow with that country as well. Um, so
That was like step one.
yeah, that was step one. So
Like,
essentially,
what part of the world do we want to be in?
so we pretty much figured out kind of a region, southern
Yeah.
hemisphere. And then when you look at the southern hemisphere, you don't really have a lot of different places to choose from. You have South America, you have parts of Africa, you have Australia, and you know what, the South Pole. No one's moving there, so that's not even part of the equation. So Australia is a developed country, and a lot of the issues that are going on in the United States are going on in Australia. So that wasn't part of that wasn't up for that wasn't what we considered. Africa, there's a lot of countries in Africa, and there's a lot of different languages and a lot of different tribes and a lot of uncertainty and unfamiliarity to us. So that wasn't really something we considered either.
We didn't
So
want too much of a culture shock.
right.
Not too much.
And so we
is
homed
so
in
weird.
we homed in on South America. Now South America was somewhat familiar to us, not directly but indirectly, because a lot
of
of
our
our
previous travels, like we mentioned in the other video.
right,
we
a
don't
lot of
wanna
our
repeat ourselves
vacationing,
too much.
we went to countries where Spanish is spoken predominantly, and predominantly Spanish is spoken in South America.
And the society is similar to here.
Yes.
Those societies were similar to here. Real cool, laid back, friendly people.
What we call tranquilo down here.
Tranquilo, yeah.
Right.
So that familiarity helped us to settle in on the idea of choosing South America.
Right. And so in South America, there are 12 different countries. So we had to do a bit of research, but we could X a few off pretty much immediately. We could X off Venezuela, we could X off Brazil, we could X off Argentina.
Say why.
And because mostly with those three countries in particular, they're having very bad economic
Really
issues of varying levels. Venezuela being the worst, Argentina and Brazil being the most developed and industrialized countries down here, they're having issues.
Yeah, like Argentina is like how we described it before. It's like a South American United States,
right,
if you will. So
and they're having some
cross
really
that
really
out.
bad economic problems as well as Brazil, and so
a lot of inflation.
yeah, a lot of
Going
inflation, a
on.
lot of hyperinflation. So it left us a rather shorter list of countries to do research on. So let's see.
Yeah. So with that being in mind, we were like, okay, we're not going there. With the few that was left, that were left, we started thinking about what helped us to narrow down to Paraguay, though. We were thinking about geographical safety.
Right.
That
So-
helped us to pick Paraguay because it's landlocked. We didn't want to be we didn't want to be near the ocean. We love the ocean, but we didn't want to live near it.
Right,
We didn't wanna
because
be on
and basically ocean level rise. We're
Ocean
moving
level
our
rise.
entire family, and this is a decision that's supposed to influence our lives and our next generations of our family's lives. And we're talking about the course of decades.
Okay, we had to come inside. The kids were getting restless, so we made our way back inside our room. Okay, so continuing on again, we were talking about natural disasters.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so we were discussing how we were eliminating countries from our list of now 9 in South America. And we were looking at ocean level rise as a major potential factor because we uprooted our family to move somewhere else, so we don't want to have to do that in a few decades with climate change and whatnot.
Right.
So that pretty much eliminated most countries in South America, or at least put an X or against them, because actually out of all the countries in South America, there's only 2 that have no coastline. But of course, you could always live inland from the coast in a particular country. But let's take Brazil, for example. Brazil was already X'd off, but that takes up most of the coastline on the
on that
Atlantic.
side, yeah.
And so, but we already X'd Brazil off. So we moved to the other side of the country, other side of the continent, on the Pacific side, you've got Chile. But Chile is a very, very narrow strip of land, very long and narrow, but there's a lot of volcanoes in Chile. And so that's another natural disaster or set of natural disasters we didn't want to have to potentially deal with.
Not at all.
Not at all. You know, because with volcanoes or volcanic activity also comes earthquakes. So we didn't want to deal with that at all. So it was pretty easy to let's look inland more. And so the only two countries that are inland with no coastline are Paraguay and Bolivia.
Yeah.
Now Bolivia also has volcanic activity, and
So,
also
X.
well that and also Bolivia is a little bit further to the north, which makes it hotter and more arid and less. There's less arable land than in Paraguay. So we were looking between those two, and it's like, well, let's look more into Paraguay a bit. So we looked into Paraguay a bit more, and we realized the only real natural disasters Paraguay experiences are floods, like river floods. So that can easily be mitigated by where you live. If you don't live near a river, well, you're not going to experience. It would be very, very difficult to experience flooding from a river you don't live near. If you live,
or at least it won't be as bad.
right, and then if you live in a higher elevation area, well, then that's it's an even easier way to help mitigate any type of flooding or whatnot. So Paraguay really is generally natural disaster free. The main
For the
things
most part.
the main things we have to deal with are thunderstorms.
Yeah, bad thunderstorms.
Thunderstorms, which you get those everywhere.
Everywhere.
Right.
Yeah, no place is perfect, but just compared to all the other places that's here on that, as far as this topic alone, this place definitely, we were like, okay, 2 thumbs up.
Very stable in regards to
In
natural
this
disasters. No volcanic activity here, at least no time in our recorded history from the research that I can do. So we didn't have to worry about too much about volcanoes or earthquakes or just massive flooding or anything like that. So then, as I also mentioned, agriculture. Paraguay is a very, very, very agricultural society. A large portion of the GDP, I think around 1/3, is based off of agriculture. And as I mentioned earlier, we were trying to find a place where we could live a more traditional, tranquilo lifestyle. When you have a country that's relies so heavily on agriculture, that makes things relatively stable because people always need to eat, and people always need to eat fruits, vegetables, meats. And Paraguay is a very, very fertile country with a lot of arable land, and because the country, a large portion of the country's economy runs on that, it's pretty well established on how to live that way here. So that was a plus because ultimately we'd like to have our own farm here.
Right, we wanted land.
Yes. So
which was another reason that made us cross out Bolivia, like you were saying, like it's really, really hot.
It's hot and drier, so
yeah, it's a lot drier. Not good for if it is good for agriculture, it's not as good as Paraguay.
Right, exactly. Paraguay also has a lot of fresh water that runs through it. There's big rivers that run through Paraguay, and there's a lot of aquifers underground with a lot of fresh water. As a matter of fact, one of the largest freshwater aquifers in the world partially lies under Paraguay, and it's known as the Guarani Aquifer. So a lot of access to fresh water, even though it's landlocked. So that's also important because if you have some drought, in regards to not a lot of rain, you still have to have access to fresh water. So with a combination of having a lot of fertile arable land and access to fresh water, whether it's from a river or from rain or from the ground, it made it a very, very good decision in regards to someone who wants to move somewhere where they want to get into an agricultural lifestyle.
Right.
We also had to consider the stability of the government. Paraguay had been under a dictatorship up until around 1989, but since then it's been under a democracy. So the government's relatively stable.
Relatively.
Yeah, it's relatively stable.
Issues here and there,
but generally everything's pretty stable. So we don't really have to worry about too much in regards to instability or political instability. Let's see. We wanted to move to a place. We wanted to move to a place that was relatively friendly to foreigners, especially American foreigners.
Right.
And
especially American.
right. And Paraguay actually really likes the United States a lot. We actually have down here we don't have states. We have what are called departments, which would equal it would be the equivalent of what we have in the states.
Yeah.
We have a department that's named after President Hayes. Paraguay really loves the United States.
They have a good relationship.
In the history of Paraguay, President Hayes did help out with one of the wars. I can't recall which one, and that's why there's a department named after him. Additionally, we get all the movies and music and stuff down here that comes from the United States, and Paraguay really kind of idolizes the United States. People name their businesses after U.S. cities and U.S. states, and everywhere when you're in the city, you'll see signs to learn English and stuff like that. So Paraguay really likes the United States. So
which in turn,
that means they like Americans.
Yeah, which is one of the reasons, or maybe it's the main reason why they are so friendly and accepting toward Americans in general.
Yeah. So
unless you do some crazy stuff, then that's on you. But in general, starting out, you're looked at as good people.
Yep.
Now, as far as other people from other countries, we don't know, so because we're not from those countries, so we're not exactly sure how other nationalities might be looked at. We can just speak from our point of view. But as far as Americans, no problems so far.
Right. Also, we wanted to move to a place where the residency requirements were not too burdensome.
Yes.
When we looked into the residency requirements for Paraguay,
some places are ridiculous.
Paraguay is relatively easy to get residency as long as you don't have like a criminal rap sheet or anything like that. Part of moving here, we had to get an FBI background check, and since we are upstanding citizens from the United States with no criminal background or history, that was easy. That was easy for us. Additionally, they don't have any ongoing income requirements, whereas many states or many countries you have to have a certain amount of income coming in per month. And since we were quitting our jobs and selling everything to move here, we were cutting off our U.S. sources of income, or at least the vast majority of our U.S. sources of income. So Paraguay doesn't have that type of requirement. They do require you to either have a job or have $5,000 to deposit in their national bank, which they do give back to you after you go through the residency process. So it's relatively accessible to people who are considering moving to another country compared to other countries where you might have to have a few $100,000 to invest into a foreign company or something like that.
Right.
That wasn't something that was going to work for us, but Paraguay's residency requirements did work for us. On top of that, we wanted to move to a place that would give us a very good balance for work and work-life balance. Paraguay in general, the vast majority of people here, because the cost of living is low, even though the wages are low, people have time. They have time for their lives. They have time to spend with family. A lot of people, for lunch during the day, they might leave from their job and go to their family's home or their parents' home and have lunch together. So there's a very good balance, a work-life balance here.
Yeah.
And we wanted the society and live in a society and be able to experience the same type of thing. And Paraguay does provide that. So that is also a good thing.
In general, there are some people that, don't have as much tranquilo, as we call it, but that's probably from their own choices. Maybe they're part of, maybe they're running a business and it just requires a lot more time for them to get to the goals that they have established. But in general, like the regular, normal working class people tend to be, at a very peaceful state of mind from what we can see.
Yeah. Actually, for lunch, a lot of businesses, the smaller ones, and there's a
they
lot
all
of
make
smaller.
clothes for,
Yeah.
Like, is it an hour?
It could be an hour, it could be 2 hours.
Yeah,
it depends.
Yeah, it depends.
But yeah, a lot of businesses close for lunch, so people can have that time to lunch and take a siesta or whatnot. It is pretty hot here, so in the middle of the day, it tends to be the hottest. So yeah, siestas happen here as well.
One of the cultural things we like about it.
Yes. Let's see what else we've got here. we also had to move to a country that had a Church of Christ. We are members of the Church of Christ. Well, we were, well, we still are. Remember, we were members of the Church of Christ in the United States, and we wanted to move to a country that had an established body of the Church of Christ. And Paraguay really only had 2 congregations, but all you really need is one to join one. So that was important for us, so we could still have a very familiar faith life.
Yeah, familiar place to worship.
Yes.
And, yeah, we want to, of course, we have children, so we want to have a place where we can spiritually raise our children.
Yes.
So, yeah, that would have been a deal breaker, I think, if there was no Church of Christ.
Right.
So that was really important.
On top of that, we needed to move to a place where homeschooling is legal.
Yeah.
There are a lot of Americans are moving to other countries, and homeschooling is not always legal. For example, Costa Rica. That's a hot spot for a lot of American expats, but homeschooling is not legal there. So some Americans have been getting in trouble and not being able to keep their permanent residency because they decided to still try and do it. And when the authorities caught up with them, it didn't work out well for them. Paraguay.
That was recent, wasn't it? I think you read about a story where that happened pretty recently.
Yeah, I can't remember the year, but it's still illegal there. But here, even though it's not very common at all, it's not common. Most people don't homeschool, but it is legally recognized, and so it does allow us that flexibility to homeschool our children. We were already planning to homeschool our children in the United States, and we really haven't changed our minds in regards to that just because we moved to another country. So we're going to be doing that as well, and we don't have to worry about any legal ramifications for making that decision, right? So after we pretty much found out all these things, we decided, hey, well, we need to go visit. So
gotta visit.
so we did some research and found a place for us to stay, and we went to we booked a stay for about a week at the Yacht and Golf Club. And the Yacht and Golf Club sounds very fancy, and it is a fancy place. But when one of the fanciest places, when they have Holiday Inn pricing for your stay, it really kind of makes you feel like, oh wow, this is pretty awesome.
A bit taken back in a positive way.
Yes.
Because that's considered like a 5-star hotel, but for 2 or 3 star hotel pricing.
Yes, yes.
As far as compared to the United States.
Right.
You know, we got people watching us, not from the US too. So I'm just
Right.
trying to keep things in perspective.
So we visited, and at the time, the only contacts we had made prior to visiting, we had found a lawyer on the internet that helps with Residency who was marketing towards Americans. He had his website in English and whatnot. It was a .com domain, I believe.
At the time.
At the time.
No name.
And so we hooked up with him, and he had another lawyer he worked with, and they helped us just discover the country a bit while we were visiting. And so we were driven around through the countryside because we indicated we wanted to buy land, and we were driven around through the city and whatnot, and
just to get a feel for the place.
Yeah, so they
First,
basically
a week is not long enough to, fully know everything about a country that you're considering moving to. We know that, but we have to give it some time,
Right. This was a week of visiting after literally months of research. So we researched for months. We visited for about a week. We were treated very, very well at the Yacht and Golf Club and by a team of 2 lawyers who, by the way,
didn't pressure us or hound us for payment and stuff like that.
There was we didn't have to pay any type of retainer or anything like that.
Cool,
and honestly, by the time we left, we still hadn't paid them. They hadn't even asked to be paid. We were back in the United States, and I had to email them, hey, how much do we owe you? And can you give me all your information so I can Western Union it to you? And in the end, it was less than $300 for us to be chauffeured around for miles and miles and miles,
Now
working
you know.
with 2 lawyers.
Now you know, if you are an American watching, if you do any type of business with a lawyer, your retainer alone before they even do any work for you is going to be more than $300. Our total service, I can't even talk. The entire service that they provided for us wasn't even $300.
I think it was a little less than $300.
It was a little less than $300. In dollars.
Yeah,
So,
you might get an hour's worth of work out of a U.S. lawyer for $300. Maybe.
and they ain't doing nothing. So, excuse me. So that was something that just blew us away, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But why was it like that? It was like I guess because they have their honor system is still intact here.
Yeah, the honor system.
Now, of course, if they get burned a few times by people, that will probably change. But
right.
you know, apparently that hasn't happened yet, and I hope that it does not. And we're upsetting people, so we weren't looking to burn anybody. We made sure we, you know, paid them and everything. But it was just the fact that things were so laid back, you know, with the whole process and everything, and with payment and stuff. Like we just didn't feel any pressure. We just didn't feel any pressure from them to pay them immediately or to put a retainer down or anything like that. It was cool.
Yeah, it was very, very cool and relaxed, and it just showed how
that was a sign for us that, you know,
money is not super. Of course, everywhere you go, money is important, but it's not
being
like
hit over the head.
It's not the primary driver of things here. Here, people are just more trusting and more about each people and each other in general, instead of prioritizing money over the majority of things.
Even when I know this is off subject, but even this is about the culture, but we'll get back on. But even when we go to restaurants and we're having a good time and, you know, we're done eating, they're not quick to bring you the bill to kick you out, you know? Like, you just feel a real sense of coolness and calmness here. Like, you can sit in the restaurant for probably literally an hour or two after you have eaten.
Oh, you can sit there as long as you want.
And just, you know, and just have a good time and enjoy yourself and chill out without them hounding you, or I won't say hounding you because they don't hound you on the stage, but without you feeling pressure to pay immediately. You can really just enjoy yourself and pay after that. You know?
Right. They're not trying to get you out so they can get their table filled with someone else as quickly as possible. They're more about tranquilo, relax, enjoy yourself, because that's just how we do here.
Right.
On top of that, when we did visit, we happened to visit it during the St. Patrick's Day weekend. It was not by design. It just happened to happen that way. We don't really celebrate St. Patrick's Day in the States. Us personally, we don't. Yeah. But we just happened to be in Paraguay when St. Patrick's Day happened. Yeah. And there was a huge party in the downtown streets. It was just blocks and blocks and blocks of people and stages and different plazas and DJs and music and people just partying.
Don't stop the party.
And it was just an awesome experience. And we had our son Elijah.
We had a lot of people, of course.
Yeah, we had our son. Yeah, they flocked to us because we do look a lot different. But we had our son Elijah, who was less than 1 year old. I had him strapped to me in a baby harness, and we were just enjoying the party. And like people were so welcoming, even though we really couldn't understand them. We could tell by their expressions and how they were speaking to us that they were just really, really happy to see us there, enjoying the time with them. And another thing that was really, really interesting was this party lasted literally until like the sun started coming up, and we were out really, really late. But
yeah, they party hard. That's his point.
But we saw people that were not employees of the city or anything like that cleaning up the cups and cans as the party was still going on, so things would not get too messy. Like, so there's a sense of pride of the country that we saw during the party. They were just trying to keep things clean during the party, and so it was just it left a really good impression on us.
It was refreshing to see that, especially when you are thinking of moving to a developing quote unquote third world country. You might think like, oh, everything is gonna be all yucky or dirty or run down. People don't care about what things look like, and it might be that case to a certain extent, even here and even other places.
Yes.
But what he's trying to say is that it was refreshing to see that that type of mindset that people have, and even us, we're a little guilty of it. To see what we saw, it was refreshing to see that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yes.
It was nice to see that they do care about keeping things intact and clean and stuff like that. Everything's not just willy-nilly, oh well, it's a third world country, who cares, it's gonna be crap everywhere. That's not how it is everywhere. There are some places, there's places like that in the States too.
Yeah.
People don't care, but it was refreshing to see what we saw that night.
Additionally, while we were visiting, we looked into just things that we could that would affect the cost of living, like the cost of food, the cost of renting apartments and renting houses, cost of vehicles. Generally, the things you need that are not imported into the country, like food that's grown here domestically, is very inexpensive. Rent for apartments and houses compared to the United States is very inexpensive, unless you're trying to live in a very fancy place or in a fancy zone or something like that. But if you're if you're like us and don't really care, but you're okay with living more modestly or not trying to show off to people, then you can live here very, very affordably. So that was another thing, the cost of living. And that's a major reason why the work-life balance is so good here, because paying for the things you need to live is not overly burdensome. Whereas in the United States, most normal people have to hustle just to keep the roof over your head.
Which is a necessity.
Right.
And that's sad.
Right.
Necessity shouldn't be that hard to attain
or
maintain.
And keep. Right. So that was another thing. When we visited, we felt the warmth. We saw how balanced things were in regards to work and life, how inexpensive it is for the necessities. Now, that's for the necessities. For other things that are possibly imported into the country, they can get a bit expensive. So because the government raises a lot of money through imports and custom fees, but that offsets the very low taxes here. The tax rates are very low. It's pretty much 10% across the board. Unless you're, you don't make a lot of money, then you're not paying taxes at all. Right. So the taxes are low, but import and custom fees are high. So that really, it makes it so anything you really need is inexpensive, and fancier imported stuff is more expensive. And that's not that big of a deal to us. It's a good trade-off from our point of view.
Any more points on here?
That's about it. We've covered everything I got on my list here.
I hope it's not too long. Probably is.
Oh, wait a minute. I do have something.
Oh, okay. One more thing.
Utilities and the general other bills you have to pay.
Yeah.
Paraguay has like the most powerful hydroelectric dam in the world in regards to how much electricity it produces. It's not the largest, but it is the highest capacity in regards to electricity production.
And we did find that out before we moved.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And so therefore it makes the electricity very inexpensive. So we don't have a gas pipeline system like natural gas pipeline system like is pretty common in the United States. So everything runs off of electricity. Your heat, when you do need heat in the winter, when it gets a little cool, like 40, 50 degrees, everything is space heaters and stuff like that. But the electricity bills are really low compared to the United States. Right. So that makes your cost of living lower. Also, cell phone bills, internet bills, cable bills, a lot lower than the United States. We're talking about, maybe
less than half.
Yeah, less than half.
Less than half of whatever your normal provider charges you. Think about, slicing that not in half, but less than half.
Well, we're talking about cable and internet packages starting around $20 to $40 a month versus $100-something. So
when we were in the States, our stuff was over $100 a month.
yeah.
The
So
cable package we had.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. Ongoing bills and food and stuff like that. Everything you need, things you need to consider for your monthly budget or whatnot. A lot lower. A lot lower.
Right.
Oh, also.
But you're talking about cost of living. We're talking about what we chose here. Oh, the weather. We didn't talk about the weather.
Yes.
Yeah, when we did our research, of course, that was part of the equation in deciding where to go, because we didn't want to go nowhere that's really cold or I can't say really hot because it is really hot here. We didn't want to go nowhere where it's really cold, okay?
But we want to go somewhere where the weather's pleasant and relatively stable.
It is hot here though.
It gets hot here in the summer. It can get to around 105, 110 degrees Fahrenheit.
Summertime.
But in the wintertime, it can get as low as about 40 something at night. But during the day, it's still pleasant. You'll see 70s, 80s,
about 70.
and then even into the 90s during the winter.
Fahrenheit.
So for people who want to get into an agricultural lifestyle, that just provides a lot of growing season.
Yeah, a lot of times throughout the entire year to still grow lots of different things.
Yes.
Yeah, but not just we don't want to just talk about summer and winter, but spring and fall.
Yeah.
Still hot.
Well, right now it's fall here, and you saw we're dressed pretty. We're not.
You're dressed for as if it's cold, but no, it's still warm.
It's nice. From earlier in our video, you saw we were outside, and it was very pleasant.
About 80. It was 78.
Yep. It's so fall and spring are very nice. There's a rainy season. So essentially, there's about in regards to precipitation, there's about 40 inches, give or take, of rain per year, which is approximately double of what we're used to in Michigan, which is give or take about 20 inches a year, but that's spread between rain and snow. Mm-hmm. But that 40 inches of rain per year here makes things just grow so much. Again, for anybody who's trying to come here for agricultural reasons, which is our end goal, to have a small farm, that's a great thing because
everything's about growth.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. The more water the plants get, the bigger and faster they grow, and things grow here very fast.
Yes.
So,
we love the mangoes here too.
Yes.
I didn't talk about that.
Oh yeah, all the fruit and stuff.
We got a it's pronounced mango. We have a mango tree in front of our house. I just want to throw that in there because I just thank God for that tree.
We also have an orange tree as well, and a guava tree.
Yes,
so yeah, so those are the three trees we have in addition to a giant palm tree in front of our house. But
in the city we live in, we're still doing city life right now. We're gonna move to the countryside really soon, Lord willing.
Yes, and we plan to have a lot of different fruit trees. But the weather is great for what we wanted to do with moving to another country, focusing on agriculture. It's great. It's just pleasant all the time. Coming from Michigan, where it gets really, really cold, and especially with these polar vortexes and Arctic blast things going on in the U.S., it's very, very, very stable. Right. It can be a little bit hot, so we got to rely on air conditioning. But because the electricity bills are relatively low, it's not that big a deal. So I think we've pretty much hit everything, right?
Pretty much. We don't want to touch on. I guess we'll save the cost of, or what we know anyways, as far as how much land costs, because everybody wants to know that.
Yeah, everybody wants to know how much does this land cost? How much is that?
Yeah,
we'll get into that in another video.
On that a little now, or
no, we'll get into that in another video. Let's just go ahead and.
Okay, but just so you know, we don't know that much about it. We don't have our land yet, so that's one of the reasons why we haven't done a video on that stuff yet. I know a lot of people are like, how much is land? How much is this much? How much for this many trees? And
there's a lot of different variables that play a part into the cost. So it's you just
that's
can't.
That's like if we asked you the country you from, how much is land in general?
There's too many things.
You can't just tell me how much land is. It depends on what I want, how big it is,
where it's located, what the amenities are, this and that, blah blah blah. There's so many things. So there is no land price in Paraguay.
One answer fits all.
It varies a lot.
And even to find the answer, we would have to go and do a lot of footwork because there's not a lot of
online resources to get that type of information, which is one of the reasons we haven't even got our own yet. We have to go and find the time to go out to the countryside because things aren't just out there like that. Paraguay is, you know, a developing country, and that means in the internet sense as well. And a lot of people don't have their stuff listed online, so you have to go out, do the footwork, ask questions,
talk to people.
Yeah, so yeah, you might want do your own research
Mm-hmm.
to figure those things out. Okay,
Yes.
but we will talk about. We're still in a future video. We're still going to go into what we do know about that topic, but
Right.
we don't know everything. So please don't think that we do, because we don't. We can't just go answering your questions like that
And I think
concerning land.
And I think in regards to our next video, I think we're going to get into what steps we actually had to go through to actually physically move from the United States to Paraguay. We already had made up.
Yeah, that'll be our next video.
Yeah, we already made up in our mind. This is what we want to do. So the first step, which is the hardest step, is the mental step.
Yes.
But then after that, the physical stuff, the logistics, there were a lot of things to do. So we'll get into that.
Some things were a headache, some things were not so much a headache. But yeah, we're going to go through that process to let you guys know how that happened and, the details and ins and outs of that.
Yep.
So I guess that's it.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, so we hope you guys enjoyed this video. We hope you guys enjoyed the time we were able to spend with you guys today. As you saw earlier, we had we done moved twice and had to get the kids situated. They sleep now, thank God. But yeah, so now we can have some us time. But yeah, so please like this video, subscribe to our channel so you can, you know, get the updates and get the notifications on the next time we upload a video. And just continue to follow us on our journey. This is a life blog, aka vlog of our lives. So we enjoy sharing our experiences with you guys. Again, we don't know everything about here. We're still new to here. We're still new here in general, but this channel is just to just enlighten people of our journey. You know, our journey of us being here and the things that we enjoy about this country and this lifestyle. So, yeah, please like this video, subscribe, and we will see you guys next time. Later.
Ciao, ciao. Nos vemos.
Nos vemos.